that helps people remember.
All right. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and all of you potential Toastmasters out there. Welcome to our show. This is Wake Up with Toastmasters. I am the District 115 Club Growth Director, Ken Richardson. And with me today is my lovely co-host, distinguished Toastmaster, past District Governor, Phyllis Trivy. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning, Ken, and good morning to our public out there. Remember to send us a hello. We'd like hearing from you.
All right, it looks like everything is up and running and online. And we're going to talk today, we're going to continue our discussion about the Club Success Plan that we started last week. We got some good comments. I don't know if you saw some of the comments from Carol Wyman up in DC, Washington,
Yes.
DC, but she was very happy to have an explanation of how you calculate your base and that's the number you use. So that was very much appreciated by her and a few other comments that we had. So that's good news, because I do think that we don't talk about the Club Success Plan and we don't use it in our clubs as an effective marketing and planning tool. So my hope over the next year, I was lucky enough to get elected as your program quality director. So one of the things I'm going to do over the next year is make sure that we have classes about the Club Success Plan as part of our TLI. That way, it'll be an elective, of course, but that way our club officers will get that opportunity to really explore it. And hopefully our show last Tuesday and today will help people, encourage people to get it. And if anybody wants that book and they can't find it, right now the TI website is down.
Yes.
It was so embarrassing. Yesterday, I was supposed to give a talk and I had forgotten I was going to use the TI website to explore, to show some pathways, tricks, and how you can sort of flesh out your decision or make your decision on which path you want. And I'm, just finished my introduction into it, and I tried to go online, and I had set it up earlier. I was able, because this was an early morning meeting, I was able to get online early in the morning. Everything was working fine, but I forgot Colorado time is different. So when I went to show what I was talking about online, I couldn't get on. But anyway, so if you want the booklet that we're going to talk about here in a second and continue on, and you can't get online, just send me an email at d115cgd@gmail.com and I'll get it for you. So let me pull up where we were and just kind of briefly review. All right, where'd it go? This happens to me so much.
I think you have a lot of things open. I've seen your screen.
I do have a lot of things open. I'm, let me pull this down a minute. It's because I work on multiple projects at the same time. And
that's a way not to be bored with any one project.
Exactly, because I do work on several projects at the same time. So I have lots of screens open. And here we go, had just checked this and all of a sudden it disappeared from my list. But here we are. This is where we left off. I want to back up just a little bit so that in case some of our viewers missed it. We'd started here in this booklet on Club Success Plan and Distinguished Club Program. We talked about what the team should look like. We talked about developing the team's core values. Most often, those are going to reflect the core values of TI. We talked about operating principles, how the team is going to function. And it may seem a little bit, well, this is obvious. Why do we need to write this down? But often it's not as obvious as we think it is. So today, we're going to talk about potential obstacles, meeting protocol, and team interactions and behavioral norms, and finish up our discussion of the Club Success Plan. So we're at the point here where the exercise, the plan development in the booklet that TI provides, talks about obstacles. Everything is not a slam dunk, unfortunately, and there are going to be obstacles to achieving the goals that you want. The question is not will there be obstacles, but how will you overcome them and how will you identify them? Some pop up out of nowhere. Some you might be able to identify in advance. For example, you might look at conflicting personal commitments as an example here. You might look at unexpected events that causes you to lose key members. Sometimes people move away, they move. And now, though, I mean, we can hopefully keep them with hybrid meetings. But those are the kinds of things that happen out of the blue. Other things that you might think about, though, is ask yourself, what will our renewals look like? If you're renewing, of course, in the fall time frame, you have some history in your club. What does that look like? What has it looked like? And what do we have on the horizon that will help us compensate if we were to lose members? Now, hopefully you don't, but it would be unrealistic to think that you're never going to lose members. So if you identify that as a potential problem, then you're prepared for it and you can develop a strategy. Are there other obstacles that you can think of that come to mind, Phyllis?
One of the things is that Toastmasters International actually says that they average a 40% loss. So if you have less than that, your club members are strong and steady and will always be with you. But as the members grow and reach their goals, all of a sudden they're in a higher level of their program. And when we go back and look at the Club Success Plan and how we reach distinguished, we have 4 level 1s. And you may not have new people or enough new people that are doing that because they're proceeding up to the higher levels. So we want to talk to those people that maybe are DTMs or at higher levels and say, if we need it, would you go back and get another path and do another level 1 or level 2? Because 4 is quite a bit. Yes, we should have 4 new members, and yes, they should reach level 1, but that may not happen. And so you have to have that potential of what will you do when it gets to like April and we're not having it, to be sure that we get to have all of those level 1s in before the end of the year, if that's the goal you're looking for. Which goals are going to be done by which people?
That's exactly right. I'm glad you brought that out. When we talk about those goals, this is where particularly the Vice President of Education is so important in having his or her connection with the members and knowing where they are in pathways so that he or she can sort of plug into the Club Success Plan and say, well, I know that Jane is about to complete level 3, so we can count on her for this particular educational to be achieved, and so is ready to get their DTM. So the VPE, if he or she isn't connected that closely to members, should have a chat with them and talk about, well, who's doing what? Of course, what I recommend is once the executive committee has completed their plan, talk about it at a meeting, present it to the members, get their input and say, hey, before we finalize this, please take a look at it. Let us know what you think and what's workable and what you can add. Getting everyone involved, I think, gets them invested in the process. Another issue is going to be the meeting protocol. How often will the club executive committee meet? How are they going to meet? Is it going to be the old-fashioned, you're not going to do a conference call anymore? Remember those, Phyllis? We used to do conference calls and you couldn't see each other, so put it on speakerphone. I don't think those exist anymore. Maybe in a few isolated incidences, but with Zoom and with the other platforms such as Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or WebEx, any of those, they're very, very similar in how they function. But that gives you an option that we didn't really have in prior years. But that needs to be defined. If the club feels like once a month, they need to state that. Let's map this out. Are we going to meet once a month? Are we going to meet in person? Are we going to meet Zoom? Is it going to be hybrid? What exactly will meet the needs of the committee members to make sure that important tasks do get done? Any other thoughts on meeting protocol that I haven't touched on there?
Exactly. It's, when and how and where. I think, though, that some clubs have a business meeting every single meeting. And perhaps the committee meeting is maybe only once a quarter because they're really discussing everything that needs to be taken care of at each meeting each week. But then I've seen some clubs that have no business meeting and still have a monthly executive meeting away from the meeting location. And that's sometimes fun too.
Yeah, I think it's good to sort of get outside the meeting proper. I agree. If you have very little business to conduct, taking a few minutes at the front end or the back end of the meeting to discuss club business is great. You should certainly make sure you keep your members up to date and informed about what's going on. But I think for some meetings of the committee, it's good to do it at a different time. For example, I've had meetings at our house before, meetings at restaurants. So getting outside of the normal meeting where we're sometimes so focused on the meeting, this gives us an opportunity to focus on the plan and do an update. We're 6 months in. Are we where we thought we were going to be? Those kind of things. If we're not, why not? What do we need to do to correct our course? So that's very, very good. Team interactions and behavioral norms. We talked about this a little bit the other day because there's another very similar panel in the workbook, and it escapes me right off the top of my head. But one of the issues here is, will there be some disagreement? Of course. It would be rare that we don't have some disagreement. But the question there again is not, are we going to have it? It's how are we going to deal with it? Disagreement is not necessarily bad. It doesn't always lead to heavy-duty conflict. We're not going to put on the boxing gloves and that kind of thing. But we need to understand when issues arise that we don't disagree, how is that process going to be resolved? How are decisions going to be made? And I think the classic way to do that is to look at the pros and cons of each potential decision and then take a vote. Majority rules. Any other tips on that kind of thing?
Well, remember that Toastmasters talk a lot after they've been in Toastmasters, but newbies are not as talkative. And so there are many occasions where somebody's sitting back, not saying anything. And I don't like to call out people, but sometimes it's like, we'd like everybody's opinion on this item and actually call on them because they have an opinion. And it could be that their ideas would change the whole room's opinion. Or they're sitting back just taking it and not liking it. So try and draw everybody into the decision making, not by making them stand out, but by saying we want everybody's opinion. Please, let's go around the room. Everybody gets to talk, something like that, so that everybody gets a chance.
I think that's a very good point because you want to be diverse in your composition of your teams, And you want to make sure that you get those opinions, because the value of that is that's probably going to be something you hadn't thought of. And as a team leader, if you're the presiding officer over this committee, don't get so wrapped up in your own thoughts on a particular topic that you brush off anything that disagrees with that. So we have a tendency to be in love with our own ideas, our own creations, but making sure that you have this protocol that says we are going to be inclusive, we're going to ask everyone to give us an opinion, we're going to listen respectfully, and we're not going to make a decision until we have all of the information that we need or we can possibly obtain to make a good decision. So that's really, really good. What will the executive committee's method of communication be? What's the first preference on? We talked a little bit about this as well. For example, I love emails. The reason I like emails is I can, before I respond, I can try to give a thoughtful analysis of whatever's being asked of me. And I don't have to, it's not, telephone calls like table topics, which is okay. I don't mind that so much. But emails and text give you, they're more like a prepared response. So, but either way, you need to define that and work in that space. And this is always a challenge for me because of my dislike for talking on the telephone. But
with emails though, it's there. You have to delete it. So you can keep reading it again and again till you're sure that the subject has been covered and everything has been taken care of. In both of my clubs, because Guy Dawson is in them, he loved text. So what we have is like a chain. So once he sends a text out, like to me, it would go to every member in the club. So everybody knows what's going on. So this is like changes, or if he can't appear, or reminder of dates, that type thing.
I like text. Yeah, those work pretty well as well for the reasons you mentioned. They're there. You don't. It's not a table topics question. You have an opportunity to sort of think about your response and go back and revisit your response. And certainly, I've had situations where I misunderstood the question or what was being stated in the email, and that gives you an opportunity to rethink that. And and I have so many emails I have to go back periodically and delete because I keep getting the messages from Google. Oh, do you want to buy more space? No, I don't. I'll just delete some of the stuff I don't need anymore. When you have an email that's 10 years old, I think or 5 years old, whatever it is, I think you can probably delete that one. Okay.
Well, I noticed Google has this new thing. And if somebody sends you a question, they'll bring it up to the top again and say, do you want to respond? You have not answered this. It just keeps going up to the top.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I go back and forth. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's just annoying. Okay, what communication parameters will your committee use? Things like phone and email, things we just talked about. How long will meetings last? Of course, no one likes long meetings. You want to make sure you have an agenda, you have a purpose. Don't have a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting. You have a purpose, you have an agenda. There's a start time and a finish time. Time management is something that Toastmasters ought to be good at, but we're not always. So
you mentioned the big thing there, agenda, and
yes,
stick to it. Because
exactly.
as I say, those that are seasoned members of Toastmasters can talk. And sometimes the leader has to pull them back in and be sure we're on the agenda. So
yes,
agenda is important.
And people erroneously think that it's okay to bring up stuff at the last minute.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's some instances where it is, but a lot of times what you're bringing up may be something that requires some thought, maybe some research. It's not something that should be hastily decided. So that's why creating an agenda, sticking with it, is important. And then if something new comes up that you can deal with, okay. But if it's something that really should be tabled until a future meeting, that's what you should do. We already talked a little bit about how the club will resolve differences of opinion and how will we support one another. And this is very important because that's the nature of the club mission, is a supportive environment. And that supportive environment should carry over into the executive committee. So I think that the way we support one another is vitally important. Even if we disagree, we can disagree without getting into a argument about it. You know, these are not the kinds of issues, or they shouldn't be, that would lead one down that path. So I think it's important to support one another. And once a decision is made, everyone needs to support it. Any thoughts on that?
Exactly. And when the decision is made, don't keep talking about it. The decision was made. Let's go on with the club meeting and whatever is happening. But this is the way it's going to be because the decision was voted on and carried.
Yes. In terms of accountability, I think the best thing is for accountability is regular reporting on, and don't write the plan and then sit it on a shelf. Make sure you bring it up at maybe a brief, depending how frequently your club meets. Here's our status. Let's take a look at where we are on the DCP, how our plan is progressing. Those are the kinds of things that are very, very important, because I've seen so many times when a strategic plan, before I retired, we'd do strategic plans. And it wasn't uncommon for those plans to sit on the shelf for another year. Oh, let's pull it out and see what we were supposed to have been focused on and what we accomplished. So being accountable means transparency and reporting progress on a regular basis. And then finally here, how will the club committee and supporting members be recognized for their efforts? And, I like to think, well, let's have a party.
What else? Party time.
Exactly. It's party time. Let's celebrate what we've accomplished this past year and recognize each other. And, if you want to get a plaque or a certificate or whatever it may be, but I think getting together again once a year, maybe having a dinner or party at someone's home or a member's home or at a restaurant. We've done it both ways. But I think that really helps bind the club together, and it recognizes and shows appreciation for the efforts of everyone involved. Any comments on that, Phyllis?
Well, I would agree. We always need to go out and party and not have to have restrictions on following the protocol of a meeting. So maybe in June or July, you celebrate the people that have been your officers and celebrate the new people that have volunteered to serve. So it's a great way. And my personal preference, a barbecue. Everybody brings something and we all have a good time. And
there you go.
It's lovely. I love it.
And, you can always go to a park. I mean, there's a lovely little park just up the street from us that has wonderful places to barbecue and, picnic tables and what have you. So it doesn't have to be, at a restaurant or something like that. Be creative. Go out and have a fun time out in the park. Now, I just want to say a little bit, a little bit about the rest of what's in this plan. And it uses the DCP to sort of walk you through how are we going to meet this particular goal? How or what sort resources? So I don't want to go through that. It's a little bit laborious, but that's what is the rest of it. But the starting point is here, and it goes back to what we talked about. How do you determine your membership base?
Yes.
What do we need to achieve in the end of the Toastmasters year to reach that eligibility? And then what goals are we going to push for? Well, I think we should always try for President's Distinguished.
Well, absolutely.
And this gives you that little, okay, here, if you get 5, that's Distinguished, 7, you're Select, 10, you're Presidents. So this then says, well, challenge yourself. How many goals do you want to achieve? At least 9 of 10, I would hope. And then it just goes through all of the goals we've talked about, the level 1 awards, level 2, and level 3, and then 4 and 5 are DTM, those kinds of things. And then it provides you the opportunity to discuss each of those goals. For example, how are we going to add new members? How are we going to make sure everyone is Pathways enrolled? So the rest of the manual focuses on each of those goals and how we're going to get to where we want to be. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. We're actually 5 minutes ahead of schedule. We're on time. That's unusual for us. So any other thoughts that you want to share on either the DCP or the Club Success Plan with our viewers?
Well, Pathways enrolled. I just can't imagine that we've got members out there that have not tried Pathways. Geez, it's such a great learning potential. Anything that you really want to know about, Toastmasters has put together an educational program on it. Have you always wondered what happens on a video log, how to start out, how to promote it? Are you looking for a new job and need training on answering questions for an interview? There are so many things that Toastmasters has put together for us to learn and not to enroll and work on it. It's just like any speech you give really can fit into the program. So quit worrying about it and do it.
Exactly. And I agree with you. And one of the things that's my goal as the incoming program quality director is to improve our Pathways adoption rate. It's actually pretty high overall.
Good.
But I want to make sure, I want to revive sort of Pathways ambassador program or some version of it to help those clubs who still may need assistance. But you are right. The Pathways program is very robust. And in some of the more advanced projects, I love that they have things like how to create a blog, how to do a podcast. Pathways has moved Toastmasters overall into a more technologically sound environment, and that's appropriate for today's workforce and for today's communicators. Understanding and using technology is vital. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today and remind you that if you'd like to be a guest on Wake Up with Toastmasters, just send me an email, d115cgd@gmail.com. Wake Up with Toastmasters is on 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Phyllis and I are your hosts on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Mondays and Fridays, our current program quality director, soon to be district director, Jean Williams, and her co-host, Jean Dunford, are in the driver's seat. And then on Wednesdays, we have our public relations manager, Jennifer Smith. So shoot me an email, come on our show, brag about your club, tell us about your Toastmasters journey. Pretty much anything you'd like to talk about related to communications and leadership, we're happy to do. Remember, we do have some upcoming events that you'll see in the newsletter will be coming out soon. The TLI, the officer training, is coming up. There will be an online early bird session on June 11th, an in-person session on June 25th, and then another complete online session on July 9th. Again, if you have questions about the schedule, we'll be publishing that soon, and it will be in the newsletter. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.